Man, that thumbnail tonight, Rob.
that was the more tame version too.
That was the tame one. You want to know what's funny? So like every once in a while, I'll watch like Jeremy from the Quartering, and every single video he starts saying, "Hey, what's going on, everybody? Hey, what's going on, everybody?" So like I don't want to have that crutch. Like I want to, so I try to like switch it up every time we go on. I'm so stupid. I'm such an ass. So I always try to think of something like unique to throw in at the beginning of the show. You want to know what's bananas is because we do this show once a week. It's like this topic is a week old, and you made the thumbnail. We got the thing all set up like on Monday, and then today Francis comes down and drops the bomb that the mission of the church is now apparently to get rid of sodomy laws. Yeah. Like this is the new mission of the church. I guess the council really
proselytize and spread the gospel. No, that's not allowed.
No, but what we shall be doing from henceforth is disbanding all these sodomy laws throughout the world. The funniest part about that is the article. It's talking about like sodomy laws in America. And they're like, they use these laws to justify hatred. It's so absurd. And then, what else was I seeing? Hold on. I'm going to try and pull up.
What I want to know is ever since, Vatican II, the churches have all been rah, American style democracy. You get to choose your own leaders and laws and yay. And now it's like, oh, no, you can't choose those leaders. You can't choose those laws. It seems to be like a complete disconnect.
Yeah, of course. Well, they want to have like a unified law throughout the whole globe. I guess that's what they're going for. Yeah. So Christopher Lamb says this today. On the Pope's remarks to the AP on the decriminalization of homosexuality, it's significant when Francis says that being gay is part of the human condition. In the interview, Francis imagined a dialogue. One person says homosexuality is a sin, and the Pope replies there's a difference between sin and a crime, and it's also a sin when people lack charity. In other words, stop singling out gay people. His remarks on homosexuality being part of the human condition could open the door for a revision on the language of the Catechism, which states that a homosexual inclination is objectively disordered. Some have argued that this should be changed to differently ordered. So this is now... all right, so look, we all know...
What they don't, they understand it, but most people aren't going to understand that differently ordered and disordered are the same thing. Like differently ordered to what? The natural order? That is disordered. Just people think.
I don't think they are the same. I think it's a softening. Like disordered sounds proper.
It is. It's a softening of language. But people don't realize that it still means the same thing because there's only one order, and that's the natural order. That's natural law.
Yeah, Terry says differently. Like, would you say somebody's differently abled? No, because they're not differently abled. They're disabled. When somebody's disabled, they're lacking in ability. You can't say differently able because saying differently ordered would mean they have like a new order for things, and it doesn't mean disordered from the natural order. So, like this whole thing with language that they're playing around with, it's the
not admissible,
inadmissible, right?
Inadmissible, yeah.
I mean that conversation on death penalty is just getting boring at this point, I guess. But the should we even go through the article that the Pope said? Want to go through it?
We can, but yeah. First though. Make sure everyone likes the video. We got 30 people watching now, so like the video. Subscribe if you haven't. I would assume most of you have, but if you're watching later, subscribe. Check us out on audio podcasts if you'd like to listen instead of watch. And then, even though this episode tonight is going to be about more, it's not going to be quite our normal, silly, stupid topics. It's going to be, more serious stuff. I would just say whatever we talk about tonight, just don't take the black pill. Like, we can still have fun, still be joyful, still laugh, even if everything's burning down around us.
That's a great point. Like, okay, yeah. So what Rob and I are thinking is Wednesday's going to be a little more serious. We're going to talk about like what's going on, but we're still going to be us, right? Avoiding Babylon is differently abled. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. This this is working. So we're going to so Wednesdays will be serious topics with two unserious people talking about them. So I don't see how it's I think every episode is a pretty much off the rails episode, but we're going to try and stay on track tonight. And we have topics we're going to discuss where tomorrow, if you guys had any idea, Rob and I have a shared note. So on iPhones, you can share notes with each other. So there's a section for Anthony's topics and a section for Rob's topics. And I try to wait. Y'all want to talk about a current topic? I came here for discussion on old news. So if you first off, it's things that just come to my mind throughout the day that I'm like, oh, this will be a good conversation starter. So, and I build this up over a week. Now, Rob has his section, I have mine. Today, I just throw in. So
we have two very different ideas of conversation.
So different. But they're both ridiculous. It's not like yours are less ridiculous.
So my phone will notify me every time Anthony updates something. Usually I don't check, right? But today I got it vibrates, and I open it up and I look at the newest one he put on there, and I just had a screenshot and be like, Anthony, what the heck is this?
It says pee bags. So listen. We're going off the rails already, guys. I'm sorry. So at work, we have the other day we're working construction in the street, right? So the other day, one of my guys got in trouble for going to the bathroom in the road, like in the street. Like he just opens his door and he's going to the bathroom in the street. So I had my office.
Thought that was just like usual fare in New York.
Well, you would think no. If you're homeless, you're allowed to do it, but if you actually work and provide your family with a living, no, then you get in trouble for it. So. It was really it wasn't like a cop arrested him or anything. The homeowner, it was in front of somebody's house and they called our office and they flipped out. So I had my office order these things called brief relief. And they're just bags, right? That you relieve yourself. But they have these packets of gel. It looks like powder, right? So it's powder and you dump it in there. And then when you relieve yourself, it turns it into gel. Okay. So today, in the old ones we used to get, it would just already have this powder in the bottom of the bag. Now these new ones that it comes in a packet and you have to open it up and dump it in. I take the packet out, I opened it up and I dumped it in my friend's coffee and his whole coffee turned to gel. So
Did you realize before you tried to make a drink?
He couldn't even get it out of the cup. It wouldn't even come out of the cup. He's going, what the hell happened? So I didn't want to write that out in detail. So I just wrote pee bags in the notes. And when Rob gets the alert and he's like, Anthony, what is going, come on, man. I know it's off the rails, but seriously, what do we do? I said, don't worry. It's a surprise for when we get on air. Don't worry about it. This is a dinner time discussion.
It's okay.
If this is your first time,
but
if this is your first time checking out Avoiding Babylon, please hit like and subscribe. We're hoping to get some new viewers.
If this is your first time, I'm sorry, guys.
I apologize.
I'm so
Look,
sorry.
we do stray from the typical Catholic show. We're gonna give you that heads up now. But originally, we first off
any murder cases tonight.
Well, no, but tomorrow night I got some crazy stuff in store. So, but tonight let's try to stick to. Should we do the Francis bombshell that he dropped today? Because I think that was kind of a big deal, right?
I'd say we do that. Then we talk about what the thumbnail is, the whole Traditionis custodes 2.0 and communion in the hand, and then what time's Angela coming on?
Okay, so that's the other thing. So at 7:45 Eastern, which would be 8:45 Eastern, which would be 7:45 Central, Angela's going to come on because we wanted to ask Angela about her experience at the Minnesota, what was it, the state something? What?
The
state capitol?
Yeah, she was at the state capitol, kind of prayerfully protesting a bill that was being passed.
Yeah, Minnesota just
the most radical abortion bills in the entire country.
Worse than New York.
Yeah.
From what I hear, right? It's worse than New York. And New York has it right up to birth. So we wanted to get Angela on because she was actually at the state house was she giving testimony? I mean, she was up on the stand, right?
Yeah, she was testifying. Yeah.
I want to hear her experience there, and I want to get into that. So we thought that would be good for the Wednesday show. So
And then we have one surprise. We made a phone number that you guys can call and leave a voicemail.
Okay, so here's the thing. I've wanted to do this for a while. So Rob and I set up a phone number for you guys to leave voicemails. Okay. Now, you guys can say anything you want on the voicemail. If they're funny, we're going to play it on air. If they're, you guys could like throw topics at us that you want. Like if you want us to discuss something, you could leave that on. Now, if they're funny, they're going to get played on air. Like if you guys make me laugh, that's like the challenge. Like try to make Anthony laugh. If you make me laugh, I'm playing your phone call. But also if like you enjoyed something on the show, if something made you laugh in particular, and even if we don't play your voicemail on air, because if we wind up getting 30 of these, we're not going to spend the whole show. But a lot of people go through like super chats, right? And it's like, we don't do super chats, so I'm not going to read people's super chats. But if you guys want to leave us something, and if you want to be part of the show, we'll leave your voice on the show. And you guys will have, if you can make us laugh, that's.
All of our regulars will know this, I'm sure, but anyone new, it does have to be clean for us to play it. Someone wants to leave us, a profanity-laden hate message, that might be funny, but probably won't play it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an art to dancing around things that I learned the hard way. We got a little blemish on our first time around, right? But like tomorrow, I want to tell the story about working in Flushing today, because I had one of the craziest experiences I've ever had working in Flushing, Queens. And if you don't know Flushing, Queens, there's a lot of massage parlors in Flushing, Queens, right? Like we're going to talk about a very particular group of people that I had to deal with. And
John calls them Kung Fu Mormons.
They Kung Fu Mormons. Now you guys are going to see me try to navigate how to avoid a strike. And that's going to be part of tomorrow night's episode. It's going to be pretty
Remember
fun.
how that all went with the Amish guys?
Well, we didn't start saying Amish. That's the thing, right? We said the thing. And then I was like, oh, let's back off and let's change the time. And we were also talking about
actual Amish,
right?
and how they smell.
Well, we were talking about Kanye. So it's like right off the bat, people were looking for something for us to say. So it's like, we'll see. So, all right, you guys will watch us attempt to navigate those waters tomorrow. But for right now, Rob, why don't you pull that? Do you have the article or do you need me to send it to you?
Send it to me. But for now, everyone, this is the phone. I just put the phone number for that voicemail in the chat. So I'll share it some other place at the end of the show too. But still wants to know if we're going to talk about a certain shout out.
Are we going to talk about a certain shout out? Are we not going to talk about Rob's shout out on Taylor? Oh, Rob's shout out, huh? I have to tell you, I love Kennedy. Like, Kennedy is my boy, man. Like, I will go to the mattresses for that guy. He's my boy, dude. I don't care what anybody, I don't care what happens in the world. I don't care who gets mad at him. I don't care what he says. I don't care if he
I was going to say, the thing with a friend like Kennedy is he's going to say something that's going to start something that you're going to have to get him, like, it's kind of like being a friend with you.
Yes, I'm ready to go to war for Kennedy. This guy says my name on Taylor's show, and he had a little smirk on his face, if you notice when he said it. Like, he was just like, I'm going to shout Anthony Abate out right now, and he's going to lose his mind that I said his name on Taylor Marshall.
He was exactly right, because you lost your mind.
I lost my mind. But I would have way preferred if he said Anthony from Avoiding Babylon. I mean, I appreciate
every time he's called you out on any show he's on, it's always Anthony Abate. Nowhere does
he never says from Avoiding Babylon.
With Kennedy, you know that's purposeful. He's doing it to drive you crazy in that other way too.
He's actually doing it to drive me nuts, probably, right? It is a true friend, right? He's the worst. I'm gonna yell at him for that. I actually think I said something to him once. I go, Kennedy, I love you, man. Thank you so much for the shout out. You think maybe you could mention the channel next time, though? Oh man, he's the worst. Dude, the other thing, before we've been on for 10 minutes. We haven't said a word about the topic. 15 minutes.
I know.
The other thing is we're going to the Canceled Priest Summit in June. June 22nd. If anybody wants to make the trek out to Chicago, we're going out. Rob's going, Joe Boca's going, I'm going, Kennedy's going, Tim Flanders going, Trevor from Tridentine Brewing is going, Connor is going. There's going to be a lot of people going to this. We're going to be doing a roundtable live stream from Tridentine Brewery. So Trevor has a big table, and he said we're going to do kind of like the Daily Wire does their thing where everybody comes in, and he wants to do something like that. I don't know if we're just going to broadcast to our channel or if we're going to do a multi-stream. Hopefully everybody there will let us do it on our channel because we need the growth the most. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good talk. All right.
And of all the people likely to figure out how to do it, it's going to be me, right?
So Don's asking if this is going to be the 2023 road trip instead of the Padre Pio Shrine. I don't know. It might be. But if we can get Jason and Mark to come.
Where's the Padre Pio Shrine?
It's in Pennsylvania. Which I was going
to... For you, Pennsylvania is what? In 8 to 10 hours?
It's a 4-hour drive, but I was going to say... I was going to pay for your plane ticket to get you out there.
Well, for me, Chicago is only like 10 hours. Whereas for you, you have to fly. You're not driving to Chicago, I would bet.
I'm flying to Chicago, yeah. It's not a bad flight, though. My wife went to school in Chicago before we were married, and I used to fly to O'Hare like twice a month. It's a quick flight. It's like an hour and 20-minute flight. I think I used to get round trip for like $150 each way, 200.
See, you're lucky because, from your airport, you can fly almost anywhere in the world directly. I have to go to a connection I can fly to Chicago directly, but to like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, it would be a connection.
Not just that, if I could catch Southwest leaving from MacArthur Airport is 10 minutes from my house. It's a Long Island airport. They don't even have like a security check. It's like you could walk there. You could walk in like 15 minutes before your flight. And
it's Southwest. At this point, they're kind of hoping a plane goes down to get the insurance.
Yeah, I don't care though. I keep my fingers crossed and we go. I pray the rosary on the way. We'll be all right.
You got your scapular on. You're good.
I'll tell you right now, the worst airline is not Southwest. It's Spirit.
Spirit Airlines. No, Sky Blue's okay. It's Spirit's the bad one.
I never flew Sky Blue. Spirit Airlines is abysmal. I think I did it once because it was like the cheapest thing, and I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. And I remember praying the Hail Mary the entire way. Spirit is the worst. Yeah. So, all right, let's get into this article. I texted it to you, Rob, because from my iPad I can't send it to WhatsApp.
Text it
so
to
just,
me. Okay.
Yeah, so just send it into WhatsApp, guys. We're going to get to the topic in the thumbnail, but I figured we would do this story real quick, and we'll chop that up as a clip, and then we'll try and get to communion in the hand before Angela gets on. If not, Angela will just do it with us. She doesn't care. I mean, Ange, whenever you want to come on, you can come on.
Okay, I send it to WhatsApp. Let me pull it up here real quick.
Yeah. See, like if I didn't have Rob, this show would have just. I would have never promoted anything. I would have never said anything.
You guys don't know that for the last 6 months, Anthony's been dropping hints about the voicemail thing. And today I was just like, fine, I'll do it.
I think it's such a great idea, man. Like, I think because some people don't want to come on screen, but they'll leave a voicemail, And I think on the way you set it up, like, I think they could leave a voicemail and then hear it. And if they don't like it, they could delete it and leave a new one. Like, you guys will be able to, do a few test runs before you actually finally send it.
Knowing Matt, he'll probably have 10 in there by the time we get off the show.
Oh, I hope so, dude. Honestly, before the show's over, we're going to test to see if we could do live calls with it. So,
yeah, because we might be able to do that. Okay.
Does anybody want to try and be the live caller tonight and see if it works?
I mean, worst case, I could maybe have Hope do it.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. So, okay, so here we go. Okay, Vatican City.
Want me to read?
Yeah, you read.
You want to read?
As long as it's not in Dewey Rames, I could read it, but you go ahead.
How much do we want to read?
Funny. You guys kill me.
Pope Francis has shed light on the Catholic Church's handling of sex abuse. Hold on. Let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah, they buried the lead.
I think it's funny that they put sex abuse and homosexuality together. You'd think they want to keep those two far apart.
Yeah, wait, what happened here? What?
Someone's calling right now.
Who has the number?
I don't know. It was an 815 number. I'm letting it go to voicemail.
Hope says I will not be volunteered for things. Let's send Darren the number. Darren, you call. Oh, because we put the number up, Rob. That's why.
I know.
They all have the number. You should have answered it. I'm sorry. Whoever called.
They might want to be leaving. This is the wrong article, Anthony Abate.
No, is it?
Yes.
Oh,
Here, I got the other one. You sent it to me earlier today. Oh, man. Okay.
I'm the worst sidekick ever.
At least you admit you're the sidekick. Okay, here we go.
I'm the worst sidekick of all time.
Pope Francis criticized laws that criminalize homosexuality as unjust, saying God loves all his children just as they are, and called on Catholic bishops who support the laws to welcome LGBT people into the church. I wish I knew how much of this, did he actually say God loves all his children just as they are? Because yes, that's true, but that doesn't mean he's not going to damn you for things but okay, so being homosexual isn't a crime. I mean, against what law? What, divine law, natural law, human law?
Yeah. What a subjective statement.
Yeah.
What do you mean it's not a crime? Some places it is a crime. That's the point, right, Francis? That's a really weird statement he made there, that being homosexual is not a crime. No, in some places it is, and
now it's what I've heard said that he might. This is like the Francis game, right? What he said versus what he might mean. He'll never clarify for you, but if he's saying, okay, the phone calls are getting. That was number 4.
Just pick one up and let's see if it works.
Okay, just pick. Okay, the next person who calls, I'm gonna pick it up.
Yeah, so somebody call. This is the best.
when he says being homosexual isn't a crime, if he's talking about, okay, here's a phone call. Hold on.
Here we go. Let's see if it works.
I gotta share this. So give me a second.
Oh, this is great. We're doing this live. We never tested this. There was no pilot program. We're just gonna
this is terrible.
Let's see. Right.
Hello.
Call from
Darren.
Oh yeah.
Hey Darren, can you hear me? Oh, it said call ended. Darren called and hung up.
Is that what happened? Pope Francis made a subjective statement. He would never do that. So the thing is now, this is going to be. I can't believe we got a breaking story today. I didn't see 9 different shows with this topic today. And usually when Francis says something, you see everyone does it, right? So, but we actually had a show planned for tonight, so we get to pop in now. So I could kind of get an idea of where I think this is going to go. You're going to have the one.
Hold on, another phone call coming in.
Okay, let's see. Who's this?
I hate that I have to share audio this way.
Let's see.
Hello?
Call from
Darren.
Hey, Darren, can you hear me?
Press 1. To send a voicemail. 2.
This is so
Darren,
ghetto.
you there?
Who is this?
Oh, this is great. We have live callers. This is like an old school. It's like Rush Limbaugh.
I feel like there's a delay, definitely from the show.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
though,
definitely. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
but
so
there's definitely a delay.
Both ways, right, Anthony? You can hear me, Anthony?
Yeah, but Darren's saying there's a delay. It's not going to work. Live calls aren't going to work.
Well, we can just go slow.
All right, how about this, Darren? Don't say anything. I'm going to stop talking, Darren. When you hear me, stop talking.
Yeah,
Let's see how long
it's like almost like a 20-second delay from what's showing up on live YouTube and what's calling on the phone, which is weird.
Who cares
there
about YouTube?
There is a delay
Darren?
through the streaming service.
Yeah, forget YouTube, Darren.
But how do we do that with with trivia then?
We're not going to do this with trivia.
Oh, okay. Well, but like even still, like if there's a delay, like how I don't know, like the whole live chat thing, then it's just weird. So everybody in the live chat is actually like chatting and answering like 20 seconds later.
Yes, that's why you always have to wait for the chat to answer before you guys get to answer.
So, like with this, we could do on-air, over-the-phone interviews. Say if someone doesn't have the ability to do video, or we could have someone call in and comment on things. It's just like with even with real radio, you got to turn the radio off when you're on the phone with the radio, other because there's a 3-4 second delay there too.
All right, so here's what I want to do, Darren. Okay. Can you hear me?
I know nothing about broadcasting.
Yeah, either do we, clearly.
Can Darren hear me? Darren, can you hear Anthony?
No, Darren can't hear you, Anthony.
Oh, he can only hear you.
I can't hear Anthony at all.
Right, it's connected to my mic.
Oh, this isn't going to work. Oh, no way.
I kind of prefer it that way, actually. Could we keep that up?
You gotta be kidding me. No, he gets to insult me and I can't insult him back. I don't like this.
Yeah, Anthony says you can insult him, but he can't insult you back directly anyways. He could do it on air, but...
All right, so you can hear each other live, but he can't even hear me. This doesn't work.
There might be another way to do this because might be able to change the audio input.
All right, but we're doing that later. So let's get back to the show. Hang on, Darren.
Thank you for calling, Darren.
Thank you, Darren. Good call.
Yep, no problem.
You're supposed to end the show. Guys, just so you know, when you get off a phone call on a radio show, you're supposed to say, what is it saying? You're supposed to go, first time, long time? Like first time caller, long time listener. Yeah. You're supposed to say first time, long time. That's how you sign out on a radio show.
And then on this show, we go, oh, I'm sorry.
All right. So look, we were experimenting live on air with you guys. I don't know what to tell you. This is off the rails. I don't know. So, all right. Yeah. What I was going to say is you're going to see the dynamic go down where you're going to have the guys who tend to agree more with us are going to point out that the things that Rob and I are calling out, right? Like that Francis is saying that this is not a crime, but it is a crime, and that's the point, right? And he's trying to make it not a crime. And plus,
now what I was saying is, if Francis when he says being homosexual, he might mean just having that disordered attraction, being,
well, that's not even a crime in the church,
right? It's not even a sin,
right?
That in of itself, right? So if he means that, then he's correct. And he very well might, but and I mentioned this earlier in a message in a chat earlier today. At this point, we all know he says things that can be taken both ways, and almost anything can. But with most people, they will later clarify if they see that their meaning was not understood by a large segment of the population. So if he means that, and if he would then see, the liberal media taking it the way they're going to take it, which is that, homosexual acts aren't sins or crime, then you would think if he meant something else, that he would clarify. And if he doesn't, then to me personally, that shows that either...
But he did. Okay, so this is what I was going to say. So if we go on the article, what you're going to see is Francis actually says the Catholic Church must work to decriminalize sodomy laws, right? So like this is the new mission of the church. But he later does say, he reiterates the teaching of the Catechism and says, he distinguishes between criminal acts and sin. Now, and he says, I think he actually reiterates what the Catechism says. But my point is that you're going to hear the guys on the other side, like you probably hear Lofton come on and say, well, and he's going to just point out that Francis read the Catechism. But if you really look at it, what Christopher Lamb is saying here is, on the Pope's remarks on the decriminalization of homosexuality, it's significant when Francis says that being gay is part of the human condition. In the interview, Francis imagined a dialogue. One person says homosexuality is a sin, and the Pope replies there's a difference between sin and a crime, and it's also a sin when people lack charity. And he's equating a sin that cries out to heaven to somebody being a little mean. That's mm-hmm. There's a false equivalent. A false equivalency that he makes on a lot of these things. It's more of a seamless garment type thing, is what I see.
So it says here that he declares such laws unjust, saying that the Catholic Church can and should work to put an end to them. It must do this and must do. What I don't understand is he either really believes that they're unjust, or he doesn't understand what justice is, or he's just using the word colloquially, right? Because like they are by their very definition just, right? Justice is being given what you are due. So really any sin, any breaking of divine or natural law is due some sort of punishment. So any punishment for that is just. It's the definition of justice. So when he calls them unjust, either he doesn't understand what it is, or
that's a twisting of language again.
Disagrees with church teaching.
Well, the other thing is, so Brandon says, so Samantha says, is there a difference? Is there a difference in crime and sin? Of course, there is a difference in crime and sin. But the thing is, so when Matt Walsh was on with Rogan, they had this discussion, right? And Rogan said, well, should you make sodomy a crime again? And Walsh danced around it a lot. And the thing is, Gordon, when he came on that day, like, he floored me with his knowledge on the subject. And he was like, look, it's you're talking about using an organ that is not supposed to be for that act as that act. Now, so we're at a point in America where you could never go and make reinforce those sodomy laws. I don't think you could in this country.
And like what Samantha's saying here about Aquinas saying we can't legislate all morality, it wasn't because Aquinas believed it would be unjust to do so. He believed it would be imprudent to do so. And in his time, very
different from what Francis is saying.
In his time, criminalizing legally prostitution would have been more of a harm to the common good than a good to the common good. So one could make that case now potentially about sodomy, and I don't know if I would agree with that, but that would at least be a defensible stance. But saying that such a thing would be unjust is just not true.
Yeah, that's actually a twisting. So look, we heard somebody, I think it was Robert Mickens, wrote an article the other day, and he said Francis is returning to the basics of Christian teaching and not getting caught up in the depth of theological discussions or something along those lines.
Returning to the basics of the chosen, maybe, but I wouldn't say of Christian teaching.
Now, well, that's what I was going to say. So, what he's actually, Father Lovell just texted me. What Robert Mickens is getting wrong there is that Francis is not. He's not just getting back to the basics of morals of Christian teaching. He's upending some basic moral teachings of Christianity that have been there for 2,000 years. I mean, that's very different from just getting to the basics of, like, saying getting to the basics would be more like getting to mere Christianity of C.S. Lewis. That would be getting to the basics of Christianity without getting caught up in these moral in these high theological discussions. That would be getting back to, the basics. What they're actually doing at this point is trying to upend moral teaching that's been settled for thousands of years.
And I mean, at this point, isn't that a false? And things have, and we have learned more things since then. So why get back to that?
I don't understand it, right? So I'm not going to make judgments on why certain things are being done the way they are, but it makes me very uncomfortable, right? I mean, I think everybody's very uncomfortable with this. So it's like, what happens after Francis, do you think? Like, do you think, I'm not even talking, like, do you think do you think a Benedict the 17th would be good for the church at this point?
You mean like when you specifically use that name, you mean another pope like Benedict?
A Benedict like pope. Do you think? Okay, so look, there's a couple of options, right? You could get Francis II, Benedict the 17th, or John Paul III, or you could get like a Pius the 13th. What do you think would be? Let's take Pius the 13th out. What do you think would be worse for the church, a Benedict XVII or a Francis II?
I don't see that happening.
What do you think is worse, a Francis II or a Benedict XVII?
That's tough, because I think obviously another pope like Francis would have, say someone who continues a suppression of the TLM and tries to upend more teaching. I think immediate effects, that's going to be worse, right? But what Francis is doing, he's going to be the great clarifier, in my opinion, right? He's showing everyone how bad things are, and people are having to choose sides, and it's having to choose between the secular world or true Catholicism. And in the long run, that is good, right? Even if it comes with persecution, like real persecution for us, long term, that is good. Like, I'm not going to say like radicalizing us, but reigniting our fire for the faith is a good thing long term.
So this is a hi, Ange.
For some reason, I can't hear you. Sorry, I need to figure out what's going on here.
Okay, so we're going to keep talking. When you hear us, you catch a second to jump in.
My speakers are.
Okay, so Rob, what I think is that having this is a perfect segue into the communion in the hand, Traditionis 2.0 conversation, because it's almost like a Francis II. What it would do is, I really think the Catechism 675 comes into play here. I think a Benedict XVII would confuse people. It would make people think that the council can be fixed in certain ways, and I just think that we really need to have it really. What does the Catechism 675 say? The church will follow in Christ's path, right? Do you have that, Rob? Can we pull that up? I can get that up. CCC.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. Before Christ's second coming, the church must pass through a final trial that will shake the faith of many believers. The persecution that accompanies her pilgrimage on earth will unveil the mystery of iniquity in the form of a religious deception, offering men an apparent solution to their problems at the price of apostasy from the truth. The supreme religious deception is that of the Antichrist, a pseudo-messianism by which man glorifies himself in place of God, and of his Messiah comes in the flesh.
Okay, so what is going on in that, and I'm not saying that's where we are, but that has to happen for the rebirth of the church. Like, things are so messy now that aside from divine intervention, there is no fixing the human element of the church. There is no possible way. I don't even think a Pius XIII could fix the situation in the church. I think Francis II is what we need, and allow this whole thing to collapse. Okay, so we all expected under Benedict, he was preparing us for this persecution. You heard Cardinal George in Chicago say, my successor, I expect, will be in jail, and his successor will be martyred. It was like the succession that we all thought, and we all thought this persecution was going to come from the world. We never expected it to come from within the church. And what you're actually seeing is, what? You want to jump in?
I was just Hope just pointed out that we accidentally doxed Darren's phone number on the show, so I'm gonna have to go through and edit that part of this episode out.
Nobody caught that until Rob just said it on air. So everyone called Darren and let him know how much they enjoyed him. All right, so
Darren, I'm sorry, I didn't even realize that. I will edit that whole part of the show out right after we're done airing this, so that other people don't see it.
Okay, so this is my point, right, Darren? The church must be crucified if for no other reason than to make room for the glory of Christ. So now I think that we're in a situation where the human element in the hierarchy and in the church is so bad that the whole thing needs to come crumbling down. So when Benedict gives that speech back in the 60s, right, on the radio program, and he says, I see the church in the future being a smaller church, not welcome in the places of, it's not going to have these places of privilege that it has now in society. And then it will be reborn from the saints, and the saints will rebuild the church. Everybody looked at that like this was this crazy prophecy. It's not some crazy prophecy. It's the Catechism of the Catholic Church that we just read. Is CCC 675. It's the church has to go through this scenario where it has to actually walk through the passion that Christ did. It has to completely die and rise again, like a phoenix from the ashes, right? Like it needs to happen. And I think that a Benedict XVII would just prolong this passion. I think a Francis II is going to get us into it. Like it's just going to let's do it. Yeah. Like, let's just get it going. What do you think, Ange? I don't know how much you were able to hear. You said you're having audio issues.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I mean, I just jumped in, but I feel like, I have to agree. That's just how that's how he works, right? Like the thing that I just keep contemplating is, and kind of talking about what I came on to talk about, but the thing that really keeps coming back to me is the conversion of the human heart, and that really being Christ's biggest miracle, right? Like he uses the paralytic to show healing of the soul, but when they question whether or not he has authority to do so, then he heals his body and tells him to pick up his mat and walk, right? As proof. And I just think he's going to do the same thing within the church, right? Like there's no doubt that the bride of Christ would have to be crucified with her spouse so that she can be born again, right? Because we are so broken.
And I think that there's an element that we're missing as trads. Like even what we're doing here is a little iffy, and I'm a little worried about it because the reason I wanted to talk about communion in the hand and this new round of sanctions that may come down on Traditionis was because so many of us, our instinct is to get on Twitter and complain and say bad things about Francis and say bad things about the hierarchy and talk about, this and that. And I really think we're being given this opportunity here to suffer joyfully. And
absolutely.
really be made saints if we don't complain. Because if you complain, you lose your treasure in heaven. And it's like, it's really difficult to not, right? Especially, we don't put these stupid things down, right? I caught myself today. I ran in to buy an egg sandwich in the morning. I go in and I forgot my phone in the truck, and I'm like waiting for my egg sandwich. I'm losing my mind because I didn't have my tracking device on me.
Addicted, yep.
And I was worried that, like everybody talks about, I'm not going to put the thing in my head when Elon Musk comes out with it, and I'm like, I'm already in it. Like if I can't go and get an egg sandwich without having my device with me, I'm already in the device, and it's a little bit scary. And all I'm doing, I try to make light of what I do on Twitter, and I make a lot of jokes and stuff, but I'm still in the matrix. There's no escaping it, and it's hard to not complain.
I have so much more peace when I'm not constantly checking. Like I have to make it a point to not look at times, especially right now, I think when there's a lot going on, just so I can, like, joy is a gift of the Holy Spirit, right? And if you are constantly allowing yourself to be inundated with things that are going to suck the joy out of your life, you're not leaving room for the Holy Spirit really to even settle, right? Like you don't have to stay away all the time because we have to live in the world and not be of it. That's just a part of what we have to do, but we have to allow room for the Holy Spirit to operate. And that's why I think silence is so important, right? Like silence is where the Lord speaks to us the most. And too often we're not listening, because we're not cultivating silence.
I think we need to figure something out for Lent as a group, right? Maybe as a group we'll make some plans maybe with the people that watch our show and stuff. But so Ange, you go to you have like a unicorn mass, right? You're at a pretty reverent Novus Ordo that you attend, and then you occasionally go to a Latin mass.
Yeah, my priest would celebrate only the Latin mass if he were able to do that right now, but he can't.
And Rob, you're in a similar boat. You have a pretty solid Novus Ordo parish that you go to because the nearest Latin mass is hours drive away, correct?
Like 2 hours away, right?
I wouldn't call our Novus Ordo a unicorn mass. Hopefully our priest will get it to that level. But yeah, the nearest TLM is 2 hours away, one way.
So for you guys, here's what it sounds like is going to happen with this new document. It sounds like Francis or Roach, it's probably Cardinal Roach, is very upset that the bishops in the U.S. are not enforcing this document. So it sounds like there's going to be punishment for the bishops who are ignoring it.
That would be my bishop has been ignoring Traditionis custodes pretty much.
As has mine.
Yeah.
My bishop, it has been the status quo. Like my bishop just hasn't said anything. He hasn't.
Yeah, same.
He hasn't said okay, you guys can continue. He hasn't said any. He's just like, I don't know. He's pretending it didn't happen. He's like, yeah, I don't know. Now, so what I'm thinking might happen in my diocese, because I do think my bishop is. There's only 3 parishes in my whole diocese that celebrate the TLM, and it's like the 3rd largest diocese in the country. Like
wow.
My diocese is. I'm not even going to say which diocese it is in case somebody catches wind of this, but it's like the 3rd or 4th largest diocese in the country. It's a lot of people in my diocese, and there's only two regular TLMs and 1 every other week TLM in my diocese. Now, I think our bishop won't take them away. I think he might have no choice but to move us to a basement or a school somewhere or something. But I don't think he'll take them away from us. And so it's hard for me to tell others what to do because I don't necessarily have as much skin in the game as somebody who's going to lose their traditional mass. Don't want to dox yourself. Darren, what was that phone number again? Let's give that Darren's phone number.
Oh man.
So it's kind of hard. It's almost like I give a certain apologist that's on on the Pope's plainer side. I give him a little heat because he talks about the Novus Ordo and says good things about it, and he has no skin in the game because he goes to an Eastern liturgy. So now I also have a Byzantine church that's close to me, so I could go east. Like I have many options. So
yeah, we have a Byzantine not too far away. Yeah.
Have you ever been to it?
I haven't, but I have friends. Actually, Rob, you know them now. Now they can work up in your area, but they love it. They like the husband he's actually my son Elijah's godfather, and he loves it.
The Byzantine.
Yeah, he loves the Byzantine.
Yeah, my brother Joey goes, and so does Joe Boca. They go they bump into each other sometimes when they go, and they both love it. Now, I've never been, but I'm a Westerner. Like I kind of feel like I don't belong in an Eastern liturgy. Like right. I feel at home in the West. Now, my wife had
not your cultural heritage.
Yeah, it would be like. Taking me and putting me in an environment where I don't feel at home.
We have a Maronite too, I think, don't we, Rob? A Maronite
2 blocks from the Ukrainian
FSSP,
Byzantine.
Yeah,
which
they're
is
all really close
across
to
the
each
street
other.
from the FSSP.
Yeah.
Michael Hodges is saying something in the chat. I'm not saying anybody's name. That's not my point is. My point is that when you don't have skin in the game, it's a hard thing to say. So I almost don't want to tell people what to do. I don't know what you guys are going to do. What I'll say is my son went to a Novus Ordo on Sunday, and he goes, Dad, you know what's weird? He's like, it's like the Novus Ordo feels like dated and old to me, where the Latin Mass feels new. Like it doesn't make sense. Like he's like, this is, and I said it's because ever ancient, ever new. Like there's something transcendent and timeless about the Latin Mass that you are in a time capsule in the 60s with the Novus Ordo. It's this weird thing where it's just, they're still playing this Beatles type music or the Peter, Paul and Mary type music that's just never, it's like, and how do you update it? What are you going to do? You're going to start putting hip hop? You want to start playing Enoch at Mass? I mean, I love Enoch, but
I think even Enoch would be offended if somebody
it's like it's not appropriate for the liturgy,
Yeah.
So it's this weird thing. Now the whole communion in the hand being mandated as a universal norm, because what's going on is there's all these videos you see if somebody goes to kneel and they get denied communion and everybody's making a big deal of it in the media. Now, I think we have added to this by always promoting. I mean, I made a short of it on my channel today, right? This kid going up, takes the communion with one hand irreverently and walks away with it. Now, I think all of us highlighting these situations is making it that there's this pressure on these priests that they're being told, don't give it to somebody who's kneeling, because it's creating this dichotomy in the church. It's almost like we're exacerbating the problems by simply pointing them out. But it's like, how do you not have sunlight disinfect?
And to be completely honest, what you posted today is not some rare thing. I mean, I'm at the Novus Ordo almost every Sunday, and of say the 60 parishioners at a Sunday Mass at our local Novus Ordo, Hope and I are the only ones, 2 out of 60 that receive on the tongue. Everyone else receives in the hand, and it is probably 30% people receive somewhat similar to like that kid did. I mean, not necessarily go up and grab, but it's not even the way the Novus Ordo describes it, which is by itself irreverent, in my opinion.
But I wonder if people just aren't taught. Like I mean, I think you should just be receiving on the tongue. But I remember Cardinal Burke came to my parish within the last few years to celebrate Mass. And it was kind of like it was low key, word of mouth. Not everybody knew. But there was at least one person, he really only distributes on the tongue, kneeling it on the tongue. I think there were a couple times where people got like confused a little bit. And of course, the Eucharist landed on the floor while the cardinal is there, celebrating Mass. And you could just see the chaos just right at the front of the church. It was like, I mean, the altar servers did a pretty good job, but it's like, it's sad that you have to worry about.
If you are somebody who goes to the Novus Ordo, if you were never taught this, you should be bowing, really bowing, not just tipping your head. You should really be bowing before you go up. You should be making an altar with your hands, right?
With your left hand on top.
I hate to even tell people, this, because I really do think communion in the hand should. I really think
you should just not do communion in the hand. How about that?
I would say, but what I'm saying is with the norm, if they're going to make that like that, it's supposed to be you're making it like Saint Jerome said, and you make your hand as an altar, but that's not what's going on. You're seeing people grab it and put it in their mouth, and this kid walks away with it, and it's like I saw three,
have it in their hand, pick it up, take their mask down, shove it in their mouth, put their mask up.
Rob, I saw 3 hosts hit the ground in one Mass. And that was the last Novus Ordo I went to. And I was like, done. Like this was like, if I ever needed a confirmation from God, it was like, that was it. It's like to see 3 in one, and not just see 3 hit the floor, seeing nobody even treat it like it was a big deal. It was like somebody just picked it up, put it in their mouth. Nobody checked to see if it broke or a piece of it fell off or nothing.
The parish that I went to in college was a Newman Center, and I thought every Newman Center was like this. Not that they're all like great or anything, but mine was extraordinarily liberal. I mean, we weren't allowed to kneel for the consecration. We weren't supposed to anyway. Some of us did anyway. They had actual bread for communion. You cannot imagine what a mess that was. I mean, there were professors going.
Valid?
No, well, they say if it's unleavened bread, then it can be valid. But you have people receiving on the hand.
The East doesn't use unleavened bread.
I don't know. I remember
uses leavened bread.
I remember going and talking to the priest there at the time, and of course, guess what? Sexual predator. That exact same priest, sexual predator, now in jail. Which I found out about like a couple of years after I graduated. But I was like, of course, the whole thing is corrupt from the top down. Like it, and like women were, the administrator would give messages sometimes. They had liturgical dancing on Easter. You cannot imagine. Like,
yeah, I can't.
It was horrible, and I fought with the people there.
Let's say this document comes down and they mandate this.
So just to clarify, the reason why a lot of people are thinking that the watering down of the Novus Ordo that is mentioned in this rumor is going to be communion in the hand becoming law is that at a recent Mass where the newest
the catechist,
Francis and lay ministers were the lector and catechist.
We just got these new offices that Francis is. It's almost like this new ordination that Francis is creating, where the office of lectern and catechist. So these are in the Vatican, and they were told, you are not allowed to receive kneeling and on the tongue. You have to receive in the hand.
But isn't that like illegally, like canon law? Like,
yes,
that's like,
but that's why they're thinking this is what's going to be changed. Because
this is a rumor,
because of that,
right? This is a rumor.
But how can they do that? How can they do that, considering that the history of the church, that has been how, what does that mean for every saint who received Holy Communion, kneeling and on the tongue for the last several centuries?
So they're not saying it's sinful to receive kneeling and on the tongue. What they want is a look, just like Francis is saying that the Novus Ordo is the universal, the what does he say? The expression, the unique expression of the Roman Rite. They want a unique expression of the Roman Rite with a universal norm for receiving communion, and they don't want this disparity between, because look, I'll tell you right now, when I've gone to a Novus Ordo and I kneel and receive on the tongue, people will look at you like you're trying to be holier than thou. Look how holy I am.
My parishes have been like that in the past too. Like when I started veiling, for example, and then exactly. I started veiling, and then I started kneeling, receiving kneeling and on the tongue, and I was like the only person in my entire parish. It was a pretty big parish.
So now, the thing is, like they're looking at you like you're putting on airs, but in reality, how much courage did it take for you to do that?
It was so hard. Yeah, I was like, I know that I'm an extrovert or like can be, but I really don't like.
You don't want to be the center of attention at a Novus Ordo Mass,
especially not at Mass. Like that's not. I don't like
so,
that.
So they really do have this. They have a caricature of people who do that, and in their minds, they think you're going up to look how holy I am. And I'm telling you, listen, my kids will go, like the couple times we've gone, they go behind me because they know I'm going to try and receive on the tongue, and they don't want to go in front of me because if they don't want to be the one that gets made the fool of, where if I get denied, my kids will just walk off the line and follow me, it's like, but they don't want to be the one that gets denied, and I mean, you'd have to be a special kind of cruel as a priest to do that to a child, to like embarrass a child like that. If their parents are telling them this is what they should do,
I know a family whose 8-year-old was denied communion.
You just think about the level of cruelty you have to embarrass an 8-year-old who their parents are telling them this is how you do it, to single that kid out to prove a point, because that's what you're doing. You're trying to prove a point, right?
Yeah.
So the parish that I was going to, like, I'd have to pay attention which priest is where, and if I went to the wrong priest, the one priest would deny you, and the other priest. So it's like the Novus Ordo parish I was going to. It's very orthodox in teaching. I'm talking like I've heard sermons on pornography. I've heard more orthodox sermons than I have at the traditional Mass.
That's so funny, because that was how my last parish was too. It was. Yes, in terms of what was discussed during the homily was extremely orthodox and, and very formative. That's actually what brought my husband into the church. Was he appreciated how clear, direct, and just like involved in civil discussion the homilies were. He didn't, like, our priest didn't shy away from talking about pornography or abortion or gay marriage and all these other things. And my husband thought, wow, this is like the most masculine thing I've seen come from the pulpit.
Imagine going to a parish of Father Mike Schmitz as your pastor. It's like, I mean, come on, you're not hearing a better sermon than him. I listened to Father Mike on my way to the traditional Mass with my kids in the car because I want my kids to learn the faith, and Father Mike is amazing. He's one of the best homilists I've ever heard, right? So
he's also from Minnesota. I just feel like I have to point out that everyone that's awesome is from Duluth, Minnesota.
Right? He actually is the chaplain of Minnesota Duluth, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would love to get him on, man.
University of Minnesota Duluth, yep.
My two like famous Catholics I want on are, I mean, you guys all know Scott Hahn is my favorite, but Father Mike Schmitz too. Thing is, conservative Protestants give sermons as well. Kennedy,
for sure. That's not the crux of the Mass, for sure.
Yeah, that's
like,
not. So that's my point.
About.
Like this is an Orthodox parish in
not
that
even
regard.
Technically part of the Mass.
It's one of the most atrocious liturgies I've ever been to in my life, is where I was going with that. And it's the same parish where I saw 3 hosts hit the ground in one mass. So it's like, it's even the Orthodox parishes, the liturgy is, it's almost like people are so desensitized. They don't even know how I mean, I'm so sick of seeing the lay people going like this during the Our Father.
Oh,
it's
the rant posture. I'm like, why are you doing that? I hate that. Like, if ever we have to go to another parish, my husband and I, like, I feel like, and then we don't do the sign
clapping,
of peace.
the clapping at the end of this.
But we also don't do the sign of peace at our parish. Thank God. Thank you so much, Father. But like every time we go
so
to a different...
tempted to put him in timeout. I'm so tempted to put him in timeout.
Get out of here. But don't. You can stay. But I feel like my husband and I, we always like cower into each other around the time, like if we're at a different parish and everyone starts like trying to say, "Oh, peace be with you." It's like,
we kneel.
I'm not here to talk to
we
you.
Kneel.
Good for you guys.
We kneel
I
and
should
put
do
our
that
head down.
instead. Oh, that's a great idea.
You want to know what's funny? I got a funny little thing. So when I first started going to the Latin Mass, I didn't know the Domine non sum dignus ut intre subtectum meam se tantum dec verbo sanabiter anima mea. So I would say in English, Lord, I'm not worthy to receive you, but only say the word. Not worthy that thou shalt unthroned on my root, but only say the word. And I would say it in English because I didn't know it in Latin. Now, if I went to, like, the last time I went to a Novus Ordo, I'm going, they're saying it in English, and I say it 3 times in Latin.
I feel like that's funny because I always am like, I cum spiritu tuo. Like every time, like quietly,
I'm like, what's his name? Tolkien yelling the responses in Latin. I
was going to say, I get kind of a perverse, possibly somewhat, maybe sinful pleasure out of
pride,
loudly saying
the Our Father in Latin when everyone else is holding hands.
Everybody's holding hands, and it's like, look, the thing is, I do think there's going to be some things coming down the road, and I think we do have some more Francis to endure, and I think we're going to get a Francis II. Like, I really do. And I'm not upset about it, because I will tell you right now, if it wasn't for Francis, I wouldn't be a traditional Catholic. Like, I would have never found the traditional faith. I would still be
a lighthouse
Catholic.
You know what? I probably have to agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So look at them. Look at the momentum we have going into this. Look at how many people's faith is invigorated, because when persecution comes, so does that's where the saints are born.
The blood of the martyrs. Yep. And
it's like, this is a time where, guys, I know everybody's panicking. It's like, let's stop complaining. Let's really gear up. Look, if you're forced, let's say your Latin Mass is taken away and you can't, like, I know Kennedy's in there and he's going to tell you just go SSPX. Not everybody has SSPX option. I'm going to say you're only required to receive communion once a year.
Yep.
Once a year. Mm-hmm. Right? You're only required once a year. And not only that, it may even build anticipation, where if you do know there's a Latin Mass 4 hours away, so maybe once every 2 months you make the drive and go to a Latin Mass somewhere, and it might be maybe it's a full day ordeal for you. And that's the only...
if our local diocesan TLM is taken away, I think my plan would be to make the trip down to the nearest Byzantine for Easter and receive, in the Eastern Rite.
Yeah, that's an option, right? Or you find your nearest FSSP, or you find whatever you have to do. You only have to receive once a year. So I would say make it. And look, if you read Christus Vincit, Bishop Schneider's book, right? He talks about when he was a kid, his parents, they would have to take it was an all-day thing. They spent 6 hours to go to Mass just to get there, and then 6 hours. I mean, it was a 12-hour ordeal for his family to go to Mass. And it was like he learned to treasure the Eucharist. They would have weeks where they couldn't go, so they would stay home and do spiritual communions. And
just think about COVID. Can we talk about that? Like they shut everything down. I mean, our churches were, that too, it was like, how awful that they did that. We were super blessed because we had a friend who was an extraordinary minister, and he would come. We would like celebrate or go through the Mass at home, and he would bring us Holy Communion in our entryway at the height of COVID when nothing was allowed. And I remember one time going to, and this is another reason why I saw somebody asking maybe why I'm not going to the FSSP all the time in the chat. I think it was Marcus, or wanting to know how far away the FSSP is for us. The FSSP is like 35 minutes, so it's really not that far. But we have maybe some people won't like this. Our parish community is awesome, and my priest loves the TLM. And for me, I want to support that desire for him and encourage him to continue, because he has made so many wonderful improvements, and he celebrates the Latin Mass every Saturday morning, and I think on Tuesday evenings. But he, like, during the height of COVID, I went to him for reconciliation, and then he gave me communion afterwards after I said my penance. And who else was doing that? How many of these priests completely let their flock go? And I was able to go to him face to face, or not face to face. We're in the confessional, we're in the box. And then for my priest to offer me Holy Communion, because he knew we weren't receiving Holy Communion because of all the lockdowns.
How many weeks before that happened?
What do you mean?
Like, how many weeks did you miss Mass? Where you didn't receive,
I
right?
don't know.
So, like, I think everybody,
Yeah, I don't
even
know.
my local SSPX didn't give communion for the first, I think it was like 3 weeks, and then they were like, you know what, no, we're not continuing.
So we were doing at first, yeah. I mean, there were some workarounds for some time. I mean, we would all watch it in our cars and then go into the entry, and he would offer Holy Communion to people. People would walk up and receive Holy Communion in the entry and go back to their cars and finish watching the live stream.
This was
in
right
the parking
away?
lot. Pretty early on, yeah. I mean, there might have been a few weeks, like a month to 2 months maybe, where Mass was totally shut down. I can't remember.
Our diocese had 2 months where there were no sacraments, right? Now, do you guys have any nostalgia from that period of time? Like, was there anything about early 2020? Like, I'm talking, all right, so the funny thing is March 16th is my birthday. March 16th is the day lockdowns began. March 16th, 2020, lockdowns begin. It's my 38th birthday. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? You know, it was so crazy. It was like, it was bananas to have that happen on my birthday. I'll never forget that. All the sacraments get taken away.
Yeah.
Going into work was like the weirdest thing, because I was considered
an essential worker, like my husband too, because he's a lineman. It's like, yeah, do you want your power or not? You know,
exactly. So I work in utilities also now. So going home from work, you're talking as opposed to a 2-hour ride in traffic, I got a 45-minute ride home. So there's nostalgia for that. You know, it was very nice not having anyone on the road, but there was something beautiful about every Sunday gathering my family. I mean, we built an altar, and we gathered around the altar. My children were more into this home liturgy I created than they ever were. Like, we had this beautiful experience as a family where they weren't allowed to see their friends. Nobody was allowed to do anything. Everybody was stuck in for that first month. Even the most base were a little like, oh, what the hell's going on with this thing? Like, you know, like this Chinese virus, I'm a little worried here. So it's like there was this beautiful time early 2020 where my family was so united. We turned our phones off. We played games together. We were playing Monopoly as a family together. We were doing this liturgy on Sundays. And I was blessed to have a priest like you did that was still letting me hearing my confessions and would still give me the Eucharist after about 6 weeks. No Mass, but I would still receive and be able to go to confession after about 6 weeks. So there is this really nostalgic early pandemic where I actually thought it was a really beautiful time.
Well, it was sanctifying, I think, it was just a trial where it put things into perspective, just like how blessed we are to have access to the sacraments. You know, it's like, yeah, I mean, I just remember weeping after that confession, like getting in my car and weeping because I could not believe what a gift. It makes me want to cry just talking about it. It was it was such a gift.
It was beautiful, right?
And it was so unexpected, you know, I didn't expect that at all.
But even having it taken away built a longing in your heart. Now, that's all I'm saying. So, like, if you are in this position where you lose your Latin Mass and now you don't want to receive communion at a Novus Ordo because you only want to take communion on the tongue and your priest is giving you a hard time, let yourself build that hunger, that spiritual hunger that will really, like, it will be a powerful experience. I almost feel like receiving every week makes you think a little too flippant about it.
Well, you treat it like your weekly vitamin. You see the people go up there and like pop their weekly Eucharistic vitamin and then they just like walk out of the church. You know, there's no understanding of who they have dwelling within them.
The most important part of the Mass, aside from the consecration, is this period of going back to your pew and kneeling in prayer, right? So when you see somebody go and receive and walk out, it's like, well, what are you doing? Like, you've been better off not receiving. Like, but some people like.
I want every church to have signs that say Judas left the mass early too.
He did, he did, right? I mean, he takes off and he goes and betrays Christ. Because it's the most important part is right after you receive, and you now have this 15 to 20 minute period where Christ is truly dwelling in you. And what are you doing with that time? Oh, I just got to get like you said, it's like a vitamin. You go pop it in, and you just walk out the door, because people think it's like, oh, I fulfilled my obligation, it's time to go.
It is that, and I think too, people, it can be that, or it could be this sort of like new age. They think it's some sort of magical thing to sustain their spiritual life. You know what I mean? Like, it has no substantive meaning. It's about like, what can I get? You know, it's this entitlement, and then like, that's it. You know,
and at the same time, you are truly receiving Christ, right? So
right,
it does have an effect on you. So yes, okay,
sure, but
as long
it's not magical. You know, 100%. It's not like, it's
But I will say that every time I had a loss of faith, it was preceded by not going to the sacraments, right? So I didn't lose my faith and then stop going to the sacraments. I stopped going to the sacraments, and then slowly I went through this. All of a sudden, I missed 6-7 weeks of mass, and now all of a sudden I lost my faith. Not that I lost it totally, but I stopped completely participating in a spiritual life whatsoever. It always is preceded by this not going and participating in the sacraments period.
100%. Yeah.
So, I mean, we had a pretty big audience for that segment, and I do want to get into what happened in the Minnesota State House for you, Ange. So, take us through because I saw all these videos. We were all praying for you. What were you giving testimony for?
So it's House File 1 in our Minnesota State Legislature, and it is a bill that has been proposed, and they have the companion bill going through the Senate. But the House File 1 was voted and passed officially. I was in the first committee hearing.
It's number 1 because it's the first.
It's their most important bill on the agenda.
Right.
Yep. So it's called the PRO Act, the Protect Reproductive Options Act. So euphemistically. And what this bill does is it codifies into our state constitution abortion up to the minute of birth for any reason without any restriction or regulation. And this would sort of complete what happened. So after the Dobbs decision fell, there was a Ramsey County judge. His name is Judge Gilligan. He rescinded or repealed almost all of the pro-life laws that we had on the books. Thanks, Mac. I appreciate that. He rescinded all the laws that we had on the books, pretty much like informed parental consent or informed consent for the woman, parental notification law. So if your minor daughter is seeking an abortion, your parents would have to be notified unless you got a judge workaround, which was an option. You could petition a judge to not have your parents notified. And fetal disposal laws. Actually, I think the fetal disposal law is still on the book for now, but they have another bill going through right now to also repeal that. But basically, all of the protections that were in place, which were very few, like a late-term abortion had to be committed in a hospital and not in an abortion clinic, because what people don't realize is that abortion is already legal through all 9 months of pregnancy in Minnesota. We have some of the best reporting laws in the entire country in terms of data, so we can see exactly what's going on. Just the last year, there were 5 babies born alive in late-term abortions. Yep. They're trying to also, in another bill, repeal that law so we wouldn't get the data on that either.
How many? Wasn't it like 3 of those were allowed to die?
Oh, I'm sure. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Is like, so I'm a board member for a sidewalk counseling organization called Pro-Life Action Ministries, and they have met women. There was one woman, she eventually changed her mind. She had already started a later term abortion, like 22, 23 weeks. And so she had partway started her abortion because it's a 2-day process usually. And she changed her mind on her abortion. Mm-hmm. And she had told the abortionist when she went in initially, like, what happens if I change my mind? And they said, or not if I change my mind, what if my baby is still alive? Because for those of you who don't know how a later term abortion works, they usually inject a poison called digoxin into the heart of the baby. So they use an ultrasound. to stop the baby's heart, and then they insert something called laminaria into the woman's cervix to help begin the dilation process. And anyway, so she had started this process, and she said, what if my baby is not, or what if the fetus isn't dead, after this? And the abortionist kind of sat there, didn't really say anything. And one of the nurses said, well, we would take care of it. And the abortionist admitted himself that they would snap the neck or snip the neck, which is illegal. It's illegal. So anyway,
people are serial killers.
The next day, that's exactly what they are. The next day, the woman arrived to her abortion appointment, and her baby's heart was still beating. And so she backed out of the abortion, despite all efforts. And she came in and sought help. And her little boy is a few years old now, saved through the ministry. So anyway, all of this stuff is still legal. It's completely barbaric. And so what they're trying to do is make sure that there can be no regulations or restrictions. I mean, abortion facilities in our state are not even licensed or inspected. A nail salon has more licensure and regulation to meet than an abortion clinic. It's absolutely barbaric. And this law, if it is signed into law, which it very well may be, it passed the House already, and the Senate will be voting on it this Friday. So if you are in the state of Minnesota, please join us Friday morning at the state capitol at 9 a.m. to protest this bill being passed.
Now, has it gone through, this bill? Is that it?
So that the House. So here's how. I don't know if you're familiar exactly with how bills become laws. I'm going to give you a short little schoolhouse, but a short little civics class. So a bill is introduced in the House, and its companion bill is also introduced into the Senate, and it has to go through several committee hearings, relevant committees, before it is. And it has to be passed through. Now, as it goes through the House and the Senate, these bills might receive different amendments, whatever. And then the bills have to be reconciled if they are different by the time they make it through all the committees. It can die in committee, and if they don't pass it all the way through each chamber, then you don't have to worry about anything. The bill dies. But if it makes it all the way through, then they have to reconcile the bills. If they reconcile the bills and it gets passed, then in both chambers, then the governor signs it into law or does not.
So if this fails, what's the state of what is the law currently in Minnesota?
Not much different.
It would be basically the same. It's just that we might be able to get some of the regulations and restrictions put back into place. Okay. That would be the next step.
So basically, the Dobbs decision comes down, and it's we all went, oh yeah. We got rid of Roe, right? We got rid of Roe. Everybody's all up and all that did was activate the left to go and codify it into their states.
Well, in some states were doing this before the Dobbs decision fell because they were anticipating this. And other states too, people don't realize Minnesota is an abortion destination state. Most of the states around us have severely restricted abortion or gotten it or made it illegal outright.
Yeah, a lot of states had trigger laws that triggered as soon as Roe got overturned, they were able to now enforce some of these things that they were never able to before.
Exactly. And so even this Planned Parenthood abortionist at the committee hearing that I testified at admitted that I think 40% of their they've seen a 40% increase in late-term abortion from out of state since the Dobbs decision fell. So late-term abortions, the most absolute barbaric form of dismemberment abortions, are happening at a higher rate. And then at the same time, on a federal level, Biden and his administration are looking at different workarounds. They might be mandating VA hospitals commit abortions. That's the next thing they're trying. The FDA has allowed for abortion pills to be sent out in the mail, and the Biden administration is supporting of that. And what people don't know is that the RU486 medication drug abortions are actually more dangerous statistically than surgical abortions. And this now you can just get it in the mail.
Those drugs killed women in trials, if correct.
They did. The guy that was pushing this through, I wish I could remember his name, but he said 9/11 was the best thing that happened for him because 9/11 happened and it totally
because that's when the trials were happening.
That's when the trials were happening. And so when 9/11 happened, the news was not talking about the women dying from the RU-486. They were talking about the Twin Towers and what happened.
And this guy is on record for saying it.
On record saying that.
And nobody even knows.
That is so on for exactly the abortion movement. It is an industry and it exploits women in crisis.
Ange, how did you get into the pro-life movement?
That's wow. I don't think we've ever really talked about that. So
I'm good at questions. I like to ask questions.
So I actually got into it in college. Well, you know how God plants seeds in your life, right? So prior to that, he sort of had given me a heart for that. I actually distinctly remember as a very young child looking outside my bedroom window. This is weird, but and deciding that the color green was my favorite color. And it was because it was a color to me that signified life. So that was like one of my earliest childhood memories. And then later in high school, I found out that my sister had had not one, but 2 abortions. And my biological dad had brought her to the clinic for both of those. Yep. And paid for both of those abortions. And so I just remember like not being able to process that really. And
how old was she?
She was in her early 20s. She had a child at 19. And then in a subsequent relationship got pregnant twice, and sounds like maybe it was an abusive relationship. And yeah,
your father took her to do this.
My biological dad. Yep. And I just remember I didn't totally understand what an abortion was, but I knew what it was.
How old were you when you learned this?
16.
So you're 16, and how did you find out?
My sister told me, actually. My mom was visiting her in Virginia because that's where my dad's family lives. And my oldest sister, had moved out there to live with him right after high school. Thanks. That's really sweet. And anyway, so she kind of, my biological dad, God bless him, he doesn't know how to be a father. He never really was. And he sort of
he probably thought he was being a father when he did this. He
wants to be a friend. Like, he doesn't have the maturity to understand that, like, as parents, especially when we're raising young men and women or even young children, your role is not to be their friend. It is to form them, to educate them, and to teach them how to live virtuously. And for him, he was very much, I think, kind of as a jab at my mom to try and be our friend. It's so much more fun to be the friend than to be the parent. So anyway, he sort of let her do whatever she wanted. That was kind of his promise to her when she moved out there. Was, I'm not going to be so controlling and you can do whatever you want. And she did, and she got herself into a lot of trouble. And so at 16, I just remember being so like shocked by it because my mom was out there visiting her for a court date because she was having custody battles with her oldest. And it came out at a dinner that these 2 abortions had transpired. And my mom was very angry about it. And understandably so. And so my sister called me, I think, looking for validation and wanting me to affirm her.
Looking for a feminist ally. Like, can you believe that? Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I was so, I don't even know if shocked really describes it.
Where were you in your faith at this point?
Margot, you are so sweet. So I like had a faith. I think I really, by the grace of God, I've never really lost my faith. There have been times where it's been hard, of course, like we all have our trials, but I actually attribute it to, I told my mom when I was really young that I saw Our Lady in my room. And I don't remember it. I don't know if it was Our Lady or my guardian angel or something. But whatever it was, I really attribute the grace that I've had in my life to that, whatever that moment was, because
you know that because your mom told you that, right?
My
like
mom
you don't actually remember it now.
No, I don't. I had no idea actually until I was in my 20s. My mom told me about it. And
maybe
maybe
you love green because it was Our Lady of Guadalupe.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's So anyway, then in college, I ignored all of that. Like I totally. I put it aside. I was a child still and I didn't understand it. And I didn't talk to her for a long time. I was so angry about it. I just remember telling her, how could you kill your babies? And I hung up on her, which was like the worst thing I could have done. I feel like I should have ministered to her or, heard like why that happened, because I think a lot of women, they do it
because
they're coerced. I know, I was a kid.
You were a kid,
so.
and it's and I think as a kid, sometimes a raw reaction is like you just.
It was heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking. And so then in college, it was weird because I ended up at a university I swore I would never go to. And I at the Newman Center, that horrible Newman Center that I was telling you about.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
I didn't it was right on campus, so it was easy I literally lived across the street from it. So it didn't occur to me to really like take the extra steps to go and find a different church in the area, because there are several. In hindsight, I mean, I did go to daily mass at the cathedral my junior year almost every day. But there was a group of like goofy students that were part of the pro-life club on campus that they had just started, and they kept asking me to come to their meetings, and I was like, oh, like, I like you guys, but like some of you are kind of weird. I don't really, and I was like a partier and doing a bunch of stupid stuff. But eventually I capitulated and I went to this pro-life meeting, and I remember kind of realizing the gravity of what abortion was and the urgency of it within this meeting, and thinking like, this is the biggest group of misfits ever, and I love it, and I'm just going to keep coming to these meetings, and by the next year I was the president of the organization, and that was kind of the beginning of it. And then when I graduated college, after doing a bunch of local activism, I worked for Students for Life of America, and then from there I ran a pregnancy center for 2 years, and then I worked for LifeSite News, kind of behind the scenes doing development work. And in that meantime,
when was your first speaking gig? When was your first public speaking? Because like you've given speeches at these rallies, right? Like you've spoken.
Yeah.
I mean, you spoke at the State House the other day. Like,
yeah,
I have such a fear of public speaking. I mean, I told the story. I bombed at my brother's wedding when I was his best man. Like,
yes,
like
Margot.
I have this fear of public speaking. It's like, well, no, Margot, I promise you, I was about to make that joke because I see why Angela fits in with us now. But no, like that first time, how nervous were you giving that first speech?
So in high school, I actually had a horrible fear of public speaking. I remember in an honors communications class, I couldn't even get through a presentation, or at least in my mind, I thought it was the worst thing ever. And I actually apologized in the middle of my presentation. It was on Pope St. John Paul II. Like, I'm freaking weird. I've been giving speeches in class about saints and popes and stuff in public school forever, I guess. But I remember being determined after that I was going to join competitive speech, because I was so afraid of making that, like, feeling that way. I hated that. And so for me, when I have a fear, I tend to just face it head on. That's just my personality. And so since then, I mean, I did like a high school musical as well. I'm like, if I can sing in front of people, then I'm like totally not afraid. And then I went to, when I was in college, my minor is in communication studies, and I did public speaking and argumentation and rhetoric, were the things that I emphasized in my minor. And so, gosh, I mean, I've just been doing public speaking since I was a teenager pretty much. But in terms of pro-life stuff, gosh, probably when I worked for Students for Life, I was doing a lot of training and public speaking events and stuff. What was the musical? It was Little Women. I was the oldest sister, Meg, and my twin sister was Beth.
Okay, so the twin sister thing. How? First of all, I think Samantha said, I'm shocked that Anthony doesn't like public speaking. So I think doing this podcast, actually, like, I'm less nervous about the thought of it now. Like, just from like getting on and like having to perform as soon as I mean, look, those first few shows that I did, it's like, I would pre-record them because I was afraid I would like have dead air. Like the fear of dead air scared the heck out of me. It was like, I was so terrified of it, where now I'm like, I kind of embrace it and I laugh at it. And it's like, if I make a mistake, we've kind of rolled the mistakes into as part of the show now, where I think other shows get awkward when they have those, where we've just kind of like, if when Rob doesn't respond to something I say, I'm just like, all right, good talk, Rob. Thanks for leaving me hanging. But so I think I'm a little less nervous about public speaking. But your twin sister, she's not an identical twin, right?
No, we're fraternal. What's interesting is that I look almost identical to my oldest sister. We look almost identical. And then my twin sister and I could not even convince people growing up we were related. It was like, no, I'm not kidding. It's not that we're just related, but we like shared a womb together at the same time.
Now you also now which sister passed?
So it'd be my second oldest sister. We're actually coming up on her anniversary here.
So the oldest sister you've been telling us about, she's still with us, and she had you had a sister between her and you.
Yep.
Now, how did your older sister pass?
She died in a car accident on a pretty. It was like a piece of highway that is notorious in our state for deadly accidents. She was driving out to my house and she died.
She was coming to. What year was this?
This was 2016. It was February 2016.
This was that reason. Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so are you married at that point in 2016?
Yeah, I had my oldest, she was 6 months old, and my sister was coming out. It was President's Day. So Monday, President's Day, February 15th, she was driving out to me to watch her for the day while I went to work, as like the first time for her to like come and hang out with my daughter for the day. And she just didn't show up. And my mom and I basically sort of were going back and forth, like, have you heard from her? What's going on? And then I finally called my husband, was like, I don't know what's going on. Paige isn't here. I haven't heard from her. But I'm gonna like go to her apartment or something, like start looking for her. I had lined up another friend. I know, surprise episode. Sorry. But yeah, and my husband, when I called him, he said, you need to call the Hennepin County Sheriff's Department. There was a horrible accident that I just drove by on Highway 12. And so he had driven by her accident and they had it blocked off.
He kind of thought that might be it. Yeah.
Yeah, he knew.
How close are you with this sister? No, were you now? Okay, so your twin sister, obviously, you're closest with, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm close to her now. I mean, at that time, we actually barely ever talked. Like, we lived in the same town during college, and we went to the same college. We like almost never saw each other. This sister and I, we had grown very close. We like hated each other for many years. We didn't get along very well because we're very opinionated, and we shared different. She kind of went to college and went into sociology and became like a Marxist liberal, pretty much. And
really?
Yeah, and then she kind of had this slow reversion. We started getting together once a week over lunch or dinner, and we got to have these really wonderful conversations. And she eventually came back to the church, and she became pro-life. She would help me on my work trips. I'm not kidding. She had it when she died and we were cleaning out her apartment. I found a sticker that she had put on her stove that I had given her that said, I'm the pro-life generation. And she had actually like put pro-life signs in her window and stuff.
Okay. So, all right. So, I'm so interested in this. All right. So you and your sister your twin sister, you and her aren't speaking.
At this time, no.
All right. So what years are you not speaking to your twin sister? Like, give us a ballpark. From like 08
like we just weren't super close. Gosh.
Did you have different friend groups growing up?
Yeah. So actually my stepbrother and I were like super tight. So my twin sister and I were very close until about, I don't know, middle of maybe elementary school. I was just such a tomboy and she was not. She was very much liked dolls and stuff. And I loved sports. And so I gravitated to my stepbrother, and we became very good friends. We had the same group of friends pretty much for
how old is your
a long time. He's the same age pretty much. He's like 7 or 8 months older. So it was like having triplets in our house. We all were like the same age.
Was that like? All right, let's stick with this. All right, so you and your sister, because I'll get into 87 different conversations.
Off the rails.
Oh, Rob, this is one of those shows about. Yeah, we're in off the rails at this point. So, all right, so you and your, because I found that because all right, my closest brother is only 18 months apart, and me and him were best friends. Like, yeah. I mean, we got in fights together. Like, if he called me, I don't care if I was in the. I got phone calls from my brother in my teen years where I was out cold sleeping, and he called me at 1 a.m. He goes, "These kids want to fight. Let's go!" And I had to get out of bed at 2 a.m. and go down to the local wherever my brother was, and we literally were getting fist fights with 7, 8 kids, just the two of us. I mean, that's how close we were. Me and my brother were really tight.
It's like the mob.
Well, I mean, there's blood, and then there's you don't turn your back on your brother. So all right, so you guys aren't speaking now. So how old are you while you're not speaking though?
Yeah, I mean, we just weren't. I mean, she kind of got lost, in college, I think, in a big way. And so at that time, she was getting into some drugs and had a drinking problem and was in a bad relationship and failing college and stuff. It was not good. And I think she just sort of hid from me, and like, because she, when you're the kid in your family that generally hasn't gotten into too much trouble and you practice your faith, I think everyone just sort of feels like you're going to judge them right away.
Yeah.
You sort of become the mirror. And so without even saying anything, I sort of feel like she pulled away in a pretty big way. And I was too stupid to really notice because my family has always felt somewhat dysfunctional, so it wasn't like, it didn't feel like this huge thing until later.
So now when you lose your sister, how does she handle it? So you're closer with the sister you lost.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah. She and I were very close. Yeah.
So like did losing your sister bring you and your twin sister closer?
100%. Yes. Yep. She really cleaned up things, and now she's getting married in the Catholic Church this upcoming year. So, and
the reason I'm pointing all these things out is because it's like, and you have some of the like deepest suffering stuff. Like a lot of people would shy away from digging into a topic like that. I mean, you lost a sibling. That's got to be heart-wrenching, right? But through a pain like that, you're also catching this story of your twin sister who is, it's almost like a prodigal daughter coming back in, and now you guys have an actual relationship there, and your sister comes back to the church. She joins the pro-life movement. I mean, you just have such an interesting story. It's just such a, I mean, I always love to get to know someone deeper, to find out, like, I mean, where did you get the courage to do some of the things you're doing? I mean, you go on and you hang with a group of guys that were all making fun of each other on trivia night, and you don't bat an eye. Like, it's like, no. and we make fun of you the same way we make fun of each other.
Yeah, you guys are savage.
There's so few women that can hang in that group. I mean, it's the gauntlet. Like, Angela steps into the gauntlet and she hangs. No problem. I'm always admiring Angela's coolness under pressure, and God brings good things out of suffering, and it's just so now your oldest sister, where is she at right now?
Yeah, I mean, she lives in Texas, and I'm not drinking tonight, actually.
That's why I get a little chatty when I drink, guys.
I
can talk to Angela for hours, just so you guys know. I mean, I can go on and just.
So when you told me it might be 9 o'clock when this is over, that's why.
No, we're gonna wrap it up because my wife will kill me if I go much longer. But anytime Angela comes on, I always want to ask her 100 questions. So, but yeah, so where's your oldest sister? She's still away from the church at the moment, or?
Yeah. I'm pray for her.
Well, listen, the thing is, the one thing, so, Ange, one of my favorite things about you is that you share a lot of personal things. And I try to too. Like, I try to be open. Like, I talk about my daughter who's having a hard time with things sometimes. Like, I try to share as much as I can to let people, I mean, there's always a line where you don't let people come in, but your openness and willingness to, like, tell people some really tragic things that happened in your life, and some of the personal things, even in I've heard a show where you went really personal in your marriage and stuff like that. It's such an admirable thing to see somebody willing to open up like that. So I'm always going to pick at you when you pick at, like, I like digging and getting to know my friend a little deeper,
Oh, thanks, Timothy. That's really nice. That's really nice. Yeah. I don't know. I just think, like, there's certainly things I don't talk about.
There's a line. We all
have those lines, and two, and two, I think the longer you do this, like, I think about things that I would say or talk about publicly when I was much younger, and you learn a lot over along the way about how you can tell a story without making it personal without revealing too much.
Well, I would tell everything if it didn't damage the people that I'm talking, because there's other people involved in a story, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, I don't care what people know about me, but some things affect my wife, some things affect my children, and some things affect, so there's a lot of things I can't say because it's not always up to me. But if it was up to me, I'd come out and I'd tell you guys all about, forget it. I have stories. Well, the thing I'll say is this: Angela revealed some very personal things tonight, but the thing is, all of us have family members who are away from the church. Every one of us. I have siblings. You have a sibling. Rob, I'm sure you have people in your life that are away from the church at the moment. But she also had a sister that came back. I watched several of my siblings come back in the past few years. We all have to keep our, especially this Lent. I really think we should all do something this Lent. I'm really praying for my father to have another. I
resent that, Kennedy. I'm just kidding.
Still the best podcast there, Catholic podcast.
The one he won't mention.
Yeah, Kennedy, go back and listen to the beginning of the show. He said how Kennedy has shouted me out.
Mac
Kennedy
wants to know if any phone calls
times.
came in.
Wait, what'd you say, Ange?
Did any phone calls come in? Did that work?
Yeah, we'll talk
one phone call came in, and I broadcasted the phone number for everyone to see. Sorry, Darren.
We doxed Darren. Kennedy, we gave you a little crap because you've now shouted me out like 5 or 6 times, which I'm so grateful for. But you don't ever say avoiding Babylon. You always say my name.
Yeah, people can't put in Anthony Abate into YouTube and come up.
Yeah, they type that and they're not going to ever find me. So
maybe he's saying that his podcast is the best out there.
No, Kennedy is honestly one of the best friends I've met through doing this. He's so supportive. He's such a good friend, man.
That's awesome.
Kennedy watches. He's like, "Yep, I'm still the best."
Yeah.
No, listen.
If I were him,
Kennedy, if you go back and listen to the beginning of the show, I literally said, I don't care what anything you get involved in, I will. Kennedy's like, he's my paisan. Like, I'll go to the mattresses for this guy. If I got to go and fight somebody in Canada, I'm going to go. Exactly. He's my paisan. Like, I'll drive across the border and I got to throw somebody in Lake Ontario. It's going to happen.
And I'm getting dragged along.
You're along for the ride.
You're my getaway driver, Rob. So what I'm going to say is let's all, this Lent, I really want my father to have another reversion. I'm going to offer all my Lenten fasts for specific people in my life. And I think that's what everyone should be doing this Lent. Like, let's really aim to put all of our Lenten sacrifices to someone specific in our life. So this way here, you don't just look at it like when you slip up on your fast, it's no big deal. No. You're talking about somebody's soul you're responsible for this Lent. And we'll pick a few things maybe we'll do as a group and let's really stick to them and let's really see God. Let's put God to work this Lent, I think that'll be a good deal.
So to do that, make sure everyone joins the Telegram group because we'll probably coordinate it in there. Maybe get a list together of the specific loved ones that we're sacrificing and praying for so that we can all pray for them together. So join the Telegram so we can all do that together.
Yeah. Let's see. Brock Kennedy said he's going to give up this show for Lent.
Actually, you said you would swim across Lake Ontario for him.
You should continue to watch it as a penance. All right, guys, tomorrow night we're coming back on for Off the Rails, where you guys think this was off the rails tonight. Wait till you see what I have in store for tomorrow. I have so many subjects that are going to be insane.
Looks stoked.
Because I've seen the subjects.
You got to see Rob's subjects. Rob's got transhumanism and or animism. And
did you get the transhumanism from my podcast episode that released this week? We talk about it on.
No, I got transhumanism it from like that.
Article on a guy that spent $20,000 on a wolf costume.
Oh
so
my
he could
God.
hang out with his friends dressed as a wolf.
I saw that.
Yeah, we're talking weird. About like what do they call them, furries or something? Rob's got a lot of opinions coming tomorrow. So
oh no, there's what is the term? I forget.
Yeah, so this was honestly a pretty good show. I had fun tonight, man. So I always look forward to these during the week. Ange, we'll set something up. I want to bring you back on for not something so serious. I want to just hang with you one night. So we'll figure out a date where it works for you, and we'll have one of the we'll get Angela on for an Off the Rails episode coming up soon. We'll figure that out. So, they're fun. Like they're really off the rails. Tomorrow night is going to be a blast. So, Rob, do we have anything else we got to promote, or just everybody come back tomorrow?
Let's see, tomorrow night. Saturday, February 4th is going to be with Tim
Resurrection of the
Flanders
Body.
on the Resurrection of the Body. It's not going to be as early. It's going to be 9 or 10 a.m. or something like that. So instead of recording, we probably will just do that one live.
We'll go live. Yeah, so it'll be
we'll
Saturday, February 4th, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. We'll go live with that one. So if you guys want to pop it, if it was 6 a.m., we would have, not done it that way. But since it's going to be 10 a.m., we'll go live with that one. We'll see what you guys have to say about it. We're going to go over some of the statements Pope Benedict has made that I've had sedevacantists tell me he made heretical statements. And we're going to see what is actually acceptable to believe about what the church actually teaches about the resurrection of the body. What will our resurrected bodies be like? So we're going to go down to see what the church teaches, what scripture has said about all the resurrection accounts, what Benedict said, and we're going to toss these ideas around, and we're going to try and actually do a good show with Tim Flanders. Trivia will be back
sometime in the future.
Before February. I'll give February.
It's literally next week.
Yeah, February.
That's
You'll get an
so
episode
funny.
in February, I promise. In February, you guys will definitely, you're going to get a February episode, I promise. So we're having fun with this, guys. Like a lot of fun with this. So, okay, highlight. What was that? Okay, highlight my
That's
comment.
why I went and highlighted his comment again.
Right. I almost never regret watching you guys. Thank you, Gregory. All right, guys, we always have fun with you. Thank you guys for tuning in. You guys are awesome. We love our audience. Guys, spread the show. Please share the show. Beat the algorithm for us. The show needs to blow up. It's insane that we're still here with 300 views on a video. Come on. This is nuts. You guys
He's
have
not
to help
salty
us.
about it at all.
I'm just a little upset. It's all right. Nah, we're good. We're getting there. Slow build, guys. All right, Rob, take us out, bro.
Unite the clans. Enoch. Let's go. Yo.